So the innovators are those that accept the cultural goal of wealth, but they reject the institutional means of education, legitimate job, 40-hour work week, and they're creating their own path to deviance. I am curious as to what innovative strategies have you come across? Did you have someone in your school that was carrying on an illicit candy sales business? The second deviant path is the ritualist. The ritualists, they reject the cultural goals of wealth, yet they accept the institutional means. So this would be a teacher who has gotten education. They may encourage education verbally, but they're not really trying to get wealthy. They're not trying to get promotions. They have really stalled out. They're burnt out. These are the teachers that talk about retirement incessantly. And the third group, these folks reject cultural goals and reject institutional means. So their mantra is getting away from society, and these are folks that might live in monasteries, communes, or intentional communities. The fourth path of deviance is rebellion. These are folks who reject or replace the cultural goals, and they also reject and replace the institutional means. The third and final perspective of deviance is the conflict perspective. This group sees the law as a means to oppress the masses. Those who have the wealth and power often bypass the law and others, and they must pay full penalties. The idea here is that you do have white-collar criminals. Occasionally you'll have one that gets a long sentence. These folks are showcased, so it appears to be fair. In the news, there was a white-collar criminal as of late that really was embroiled in a strategy to pay their kids' way through Ivy League schools. This individual was given a choice of their prison, and other notable celebrities cried foul. Low-income street criminals do not get a chance to choose their jail unless it is a plea deal by which they have, but that's not really a choice. So the conflict perspective would basically look at the law as illegitimate. So if you look at white-collar crime and street crime, the conflict theorist would use white-collar crime as an example to justify their case. This is crime committed by those who have wealth and power, whereas street crime is committed by those of lower social class. And the idea is that the crime is a way to escape poverty. Corporate crime is a type of white-collar crime such as embezzlement, or, as I've mentioned, paying for your kids' acceptance and completion of an Ivy League school. If you look at the U.S. prison system, U.S. has the highest amount of prisoners in the world. This has led to a critical case of prison overcrowding. 2/3 of those who commit violent crimes are rearrested. The majority of prisoners are male, have a high school education or less, and are from lower to middle social class. So if you look at prison reform, criminal justice reform, there has been a lot of talk about changing the mandatory minimum. There was a 3 strikes you're out rule that was put into place under the Reagan administration. In my childhood days, I remember Nancy Reagan's Just Say No campaign. President Reagan put in a pretty strict 3 strikes and you're out. So this led to the mass incarceration. Some sociologists have referred to this as the war on the poor, because these crimes and these laws essentially targeted drug users from lower socioeconomic status. Crack cocaine users from middle class backgrounds are arrested far less than crack users from lower socioeconomic status, even though there are far more crack users from upper socioeconomic backgrounds. Sociologists can study this. The statistics are out there. And you look at the explosion of incarceration. If you look at car theft in 1992, as opposed to 2006, there's a 65% increase. Burglary, 57%. Stolen property, 50% increase. Aggravated assault, 40%. And then go all the way down to illegal weapons and fraud being the least. Forgery and counterfeiting, 13%. So the conflict theorist would see these stats and say there should be far more arrests for forgery, counterfeiting, and fraud. Larceny should be far more than some of the others. If you look at the states that are reporting fewest crimes, Maine, North Dakota, Vermont, most dangerous, South Carolina, Tennessee, Nevada. Now this is one graph that I find very interesting. If you look at the age, younger males have a higher likelihood of going to prison. Young males who have less than a high school education, also as they age, those who never marry have a high likelihood. So if you are a male and if you are between the ages of 18 and 24, the things that best keep you from prison: graduating college. When you look at individuals who graduate college, only 27% of the U.S. population has a college education. So 1 out of every 3 people have a college education, yet only 2% of prisoners have a college education. This is pretty telling and pretty important to note. Simply graduating college is something else that a lot of folks don't necessarily recognize, but marriage. Marriage and graduating from college can anchor individuals and ground them. When you look at the statistics of people who, in this order, graduate from high school first, then go to college and graduate, then go to work, and then get married, and 6 months after marriage, have their first child. If you look at those people who follow that trajectory, there's almost no poverty, and there is an extremely low incarceration rates for those. So sociologists would say that things that anchor us, keep us from deviant activities, are things like education, occupation. Specifically, the stronger these outer controls are, the stronger the inner controls would be. All right. So enjoy this lecture as always. Look forward to hearing from you online, seeing what you have to say. in your writing. Y'all take care.